In this video, we're going to talk about some basic handling exercises for the quarterstaff. We're going to go over 3 ways to spin the staff. Center spinning, which is mostly decorative but really good for developing your forearms. Wide spinning, which is good for control and practical use. And a third technique that I really enjoy called flowering, which is for movement and a bit more specialized area control. So let's get started. If you don't already have a quarterstaff, a long, thin piece of wood, you should be able to get something approximately like this at most hardware stores. If you look at the broom handles, there's a few things you should keep in mind. First of all, if you are getting something like a broom handle, don't get plastic or metal. Metal's going to be too heavy and plastic's going to be too light. In both cases, you're going to do a lot of additional damage to yourself while you're practicing. You are inevitably going to hit yourself once or twice. It's not comfortable, it's part of the process. And if you're using wood, make sure that it's not painted or lacquered. That's going to cause your hands to stick as they're sliding up and down the quarterstaff, and it's going to get in the way of you being able to properly practice the techniques. Additionally, if paint or lacquer hits something, it'll start to chip, and those chips will get into your hands, just like splinters. It's really unpleasant. I strongly recommend finding a light wood. This is a waxwood staff. If you can't find waxwood, any sort of light wood will do. Sand it down yourself and oil it with something like boiled linseed oil or an oil that's appropriate for the wood that you're using. You want to make sure that it's a smooth surface, free of splinters, and any other material that might get in the way of your practice. Another thing that you're going to want to keep in mind is the space in which you're practicing. Now, I'm actually doing this in the living room of my house, partially to illustrate that you don't need a ton of space to be able to practice these exercises. The center spin happens directly in front of you. You can practice a wide spin, again, directly in front of you. And the only one that requires a bit more is flowering. And as you can see, as I'm doing this quite slowly, it does travel to either side of you. If you don't have strong control of the staff, it might start to go wide. So make sure, just by running the staff in sort of a semicircle around you in any direction that you're worried about hitting something, that you do have enough space. You can see I can even stretch straight up and not hit the ceiling. This is going to be different for any space that you're in. I happen to have a pretty high ceiling here, so just be careful in the space that you're operating in. If you can practice outside, even better. But if you don't have access to an exterior space, working inside is just fine. If you've ever watched someone fighting with a staff in movies, television, even video games, you've probably seen a center spin. It's the most common thing that anyone picking up a stick will probably try to do. You have one hand in the center, turn your hand over, and sweep between the 2 hands. It's pretty easy to do. It's not necessarily the most practical technique if you're using a quarterstaff for self-defense, but it is really good for a couple other things. The first of these is building up your forearms, your elbows, your wrists, and generally your endurance for being able to use a lever weapon like a staff or polearm. The first thing that I'd recommend doing is just hold the staff in the center, palm up with one hand, and rotate all the way around, slowly, as far as your arm is comfortable going. So I can get about 270 degrees of rotation before I start to feel some weird tension. And you just want to take this slow as you're building up. This staff is about 6.5 feet, so it's a pretty long lever. You might be using something shorter. I would not recommend using anything longer. And just get used to doing that in each hand. Do it with my left hand, just to show the other direction. And where you should be feeling this if you're building it up, the outside of your shoulder, and down into your forearm here. Now obviously, this isn't spinning all the way around. This isn't the thing that you've seen in film and TV. That looks more like this. So how are we going to do it? Again, we're going to start, I recommend, with your dominant hand first, holding it in just about the center, palm up. We'll break this down pretty slowly. Really, it's just 2 steps. Flip the staff over, catch with the other hand, roll back, and repeat. And you're just using your other hand to guide the momentum while you're resetting the control hand. In this case, the dominant hand. You can do it non-dominant hand. It's the same technique. Now, if you're watching this closely, you may see my hand popping a little bit. That's okay. At the end of the day, the most important thing is a smooth motion of the stick itself. Now, a couple things to keep in mind as you're doing this. First, whichever hand is controlling the spin of the staff should be rotating in towards the thumb. You don't want to try and do this going the other way, because that force is then being held down. The rotational force of the staff is being controlled by the thumb, which is not great at exerting pressure. It's good for maintaining control and opposing the pressure exerted by the rest of your hand for a grip. But if you're doing it this way, there's a chance that it's just going to pop out and you're not going to be able to save it. And then you've got a stick flying off in some direction. We want to avoid that. So, by rotating this way, if something goes wrong, you've got the meat of your hand, all four fingers, and the palm of your hand in control of the weapon. And you can just build up speed to something you're comfortable with. Now, I mentioned a couple times already, this is not necessarily the best technique for self-defense. Why is that? It comes back to what we just said about why you don't want to spin away from your thumb. Again, you only have one point of contact with the staff at any time. When I switch to reset and continue to spin, it's the same thing. I'm only have one hand in contact, and that's actually even weaker because we're spinning in that other direction where the thumb is the only thing really holding the staff in place. And do that with one hand so you can see what that grip kind of looks like. And you can see this weak point here. If I hit something, I'm not going to do it because I'm in my house, but if I hit something while I'm center spinning like this, it will pop out. It's just going to fly away. And then I'm defenseless. Now, it looks great. It's really good for building up those muscles, as I said, but you want to be careful about only using this for training or for some sort of demonstration, maybe in a solo routine or when you're trying to look good for the camera, because it is really excellent for that. So the other version of spinning your staff is something that I refer to as a control spin. Control spin keeps both hands in contact with the staff the entirety of the spin, and it can be broken down into two parts. So the first is just a flip. You can see my hands are staying in contact with the staff the entire time. This is why I mentioned that you probably don't want a lacquered or painted material, because as your hands are sliding, it will stick to that. You can hear it a little bit here. It's been a while since I cleaned and oiled this particular staff, so it is getting a little bit tacky. That happens a lot faster with something that's painted. When I say that I haven't cleaned this in a while, I mean this level of tackiness built up over, I would say, a year and a half. If you have a painted or lacquered staff, that's going to happen much, much faster. And again, if you have something painted or lacquered and you're actually drilling for resistance of hitting something, that paint or lacquer is going to chip. It's going to get even worse. So, back to the control spin. First step you want is to figure out how to properly hold it. Now you'll see there's a couple ways that you'll see someone using a staff. There's a double overhand grip. This is very common in European martial arts, and it provides a really high degree of control of the weapon. You have a lot of leverage, and you can really quickly muscle the point around to parry or control your opponent's weapon. Again, the benefit of a staff is that it's threatening across its entire length. Every inch of this is technically a striking surface, and you want to be able to maximize that. With this double overhanded grip, you have full control, and you can really get in someone's face and control the tempo of the fight and the direction of their weapon. But it does mean you're limited. It's really hard to bring the back end around. You have to come around horizontally. Learning how to do this control spin lets you do that vertically, which adds another dimension to your techniques. So to do that, you're going to want to learn to manipulate the staff in a mixed grip. Basically, this just means your lead hand is palm up and your rear hand is palm down. Something like this. And you'll see in a lot of manuals in both Chinese, Japanese, and European martial arts. This is a pretty common grip to see throughout. Holding the staff towards the rear, point extended. We're going to move up a little towards the middle just to make this easier. The first part of the technique is the flip. And all I'm doing is I'm sliding my hands towards each other, and then they pass and extend out again to arrest the motion of the stick. You can break with your fingers or your thumb. If you slide all the way out, you're just catching in the direction that you're rotating. To determine the direction that you're rotating, generally speaking, it's the direction that you're looking. You want to be looking in the direction that you're rotating so you know what you're hitting. If you want to turn this into a full spin, you just have to repeat. Now, when you're rotating the staff repeatedly, you're going to need to rotate your hands. It sounds more difficult than it actually is. Try and slow this down. But basically, as I'm rotating, instead of keeping my hand flat the whole time, I'm allowing the momentum to carry it and rotating my hand along the back. I'm just turning my hand over. And it's mostly in the catching hand where that's going to happen. This is going to take practice. You're going to drop the staff. That's okay. It happens to everyone. No one's going to be perfect on this the first try. The third and final version of the spin that we're going to go over in this video is something that I call flowering. It's the name of the technique as it was taught to me. And it's an interesting place because it fits sort of between the center spin and the control spin and has a little bit of practicality and a little bit of flash. So you can use it in both cases, but either way, it's a great exercise in staff control. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to have the staff to your side. We're not holding it in front of us for this particular exercise. The first version of flowering that you're going to want to do is single-handed, and it works something like this. You're going to take note of which end is up and which end is down on your staff. Short version to remind yourself as you go through, it's the direction your thumb is pointing when you hold the staff in a neutral grip, or the side of your hand that your thumb is on. And what you're going to do is you're going to dip the front end of the staff in front of you, scoop it up behind you, bring it to the other side. Again, your thumb side of your hand is pointed up, and then you're going to do the same and scoop it back down to the other side. You want to try and keep the staff as close to your body as possible, and just practice that a few times. And once you get comfortable spinning the staff in this way, then you're going to put it in your non-dominant hand. And again, take note of the top and bottom. It's the side of your hand that your thumb is on, pointing towards the ceiling. You do the same thing. Now, you might find that when you do this with your non-dominant hand, that it's a lot more difficult. Many people do. One side of the body typically is easier to control for most people. I jokingly refer to that as the smart side, and the side that's a little harder to work with, the dumb side. And the dumb side doesn't mean that it's incapable of doing a thing, just that you're going to need to spend a little more time practicing with that side. After you get comfortable spinning the staff one-handed in the flowering manner, we're going to learn to do it with two hands, so you can get a much more fluid motion. So how are we going to do this? Again, you're going to hold it off to the side, and you're going to scoop down in front of you. As you come up, you're going to bring your other hand, which has so far not been engaged, under the hand that has control of the staff. You're going to let the staff fall into the palm, and then do the scoop on the other side. And over time, as you get more comfortable, you can increase the speed to your comfort level. The final and advanced version of flowering is while moving. To do that, we are going to hold the staff in front of us. You're going to pick a direction that you're going to travel. In this case, I'm going to travel towards my left foot. Now, you've gotten comfortable switching back and forth with the two hands. This time, as you scoop, you're going to turn your body, and as you're switching hands, you step forward. And then again. And this time, I'm going to step back. And this gives you a nice little footwork drill. That's how you use flowering. So as I said at the beginning of this section, flowering sits in between center spinning and control spinning in terms of showing off and practicality. Obviously, it looks great. It's a fun trick. It's a thing that's instantly going to impress people once you learn to pull it off. From a practicality perspective, if you studied martial arts to any degree, you've probably heard people talk about controlling the center line. This is a line that you draw between yourself and your opponent. And you think of it like a rope between the two of you. And whoever has control of that line during the fight generally has control of the timing, the measure, everything that's critical to being able to protect yourself and quickly defeat your opponent. When flowering, you're bringing both ends of the weapon across the center line in quick succession. And this creates a series of dynamic threats that your opponent has to contend with. Again, the staff is a reach weapon. So if you're bringing it forward, they are going to have to deal with that or get thwacked, and nobody really wants that. That said, there is an easier way to maintain control of the center, and that's just with a good strong guard and a projected threat. So in this video, we've given you 3 different ways to control your staff and train your handling. We gave you the center spin, the control spin, and finally, flowering. Thank you so much. Get to practicing. Don't worry, you're probably not going to get it on the first try. The flowering alone took me weeks to master when I was first taught it. Keep practicing, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.